Hi, I'm Lizzie Maddox, an engineer turned homeschool mom to 3 little boys, and I like to talk about the details of homeschooling because I believe it's the little details that can make the difference between a good and a bad day and affect the levels of peace and confidence in your home. This is the first video in a new series I'm starting about how to homeschool. I noticed that some of my viewers are new homeschoolers or moms that are considering homeschooling. And it hasn't been that long since I was in that position. We are finishing out our 4th year of homeschooling. We never planned to homeschool, but here we are 4 years later. And it was about 4.5 years ago that I started planning and considering. And I remember what it was like. The memories are still fresh of the overwhelm I felt. When I started planning. I have an engineering degree, not an education degree. And while you don't need an education degree to teach your kids, there are some things to learn. My oldest was just going into 1st grade when we started homeschooling. So I have 2 younger boys as well. So I needed to teach my kids to read, to write, to everything from the start. I had to teach them. So there were some things for me to learn. And besides just the academic part of it, there's everything else involved, planning and scheduling and laws, what was required of me, so many different aspects to homeschooling. And I became very overwhelmed very quickly. And remembering that, I really want to help those homeschoolers that are considering homeschooling or have just begun and maybe haven't hit their stride yet, still don't feel comfortable, don't feel confident in their homeschool, and are trying to figure out how to, what to change or what to do different. Those are the people that these videos are targeted to. This is just the first video in the series. We will talk about things like, in future videos, we'll talk about things like curricula and planning and scheduling and all those different homeschool aspects. But the next 3 videos are going to be dedicated to what I recommend as the first steps in homeschooling, to be done in order for them to be the most effective. The first video, the step 1, will be concerning legalities. Step 2 will be about getting to know the individuals in your family, and step 3 will be the 3 Ds, which I'll tell you about when we get to that video. The thing I want to talk about today that will affect you in all of your decision making when you're homeschooling, and there are going to be a lot of decisions. The decision to homeschool is really the decision to make a lot of other decisions, and this one thing will help you in that decision making. It'll also help you to help increase that happiness in your homeschool and in homeschooling, and lay a really good foundation for you, help you to lay that good foundation, good groundwork for homeschooling. And that's the idea of embracing the uniqueness of your family. There's a quote by Edward Young that I love. It says that we are all born originals. And I love that idea. I see the truth of it in my kids. I have 3 boys, and they are all very different from each other. My husband and I, we of course see ourselves in our kids, but as they get older, we see more and more of their personality and more and more of their individuality. And that's really fun to watch. When they're little babies, it's easy to think that, our kids are extensions of ourselves. And a lot of times it feels like that if they're attached to you for a good part of the day when they're little babies. But as they get older, we see the truth of the situation, which is they are not simply extensions of us. We don't own them. They're on loan to us to care for and raise up. But they're their own people. We are also, as parents, unique, except we also have some life experience to go along with our uniqueness, a unique life experience. And when you put all of these unique individuals into a family, you have a unique family like no other. When each of our kids was born, someone new who had never been and never will be again came into the world. And then when you put all of these unique individuals into a family, we are a unique creation, this family. And when you look at it in those terms, it's kind of awe-inspiring to consider just how unique our family is, that we are like no other family. And the degree to which you embrace that will really help you in your homeschool. or just in your family, whether or not you homeschool. If you decide that maybe homeschooling isn't for you, or maybe now's not the right time, it'll still help you in your family to embrace and celebrate the uniqueness of your family. I know that's not easy for everyone. It's when we're building relationships, it's important to recognize commonalities and to focus on those. But at the same time, it's also, I think, really fun to see the differences in people. My husband and I are very different from each other. That's part of the reason that I married him, because he's so different from me. If everyone were just the same, life would be pretty boring. So we really need to embrace that. While we look for commonalities in relationships, also embrace the uniqueness in our own family. And in that way, we can also enjoy the uniqueness of other families. As far as homeschooling is concerned, there are 3 different areas where the degree to which you embrace the uniqueness of your family will help to determine your thinking. And the first is in the area of criticisms. The decision to homeschool is out of the norm for many people. They may not know other homeschoolers, and or maybe have heard some negative things and have developed some negative opinions about the idea of homeschooling. So then if, let's say you have a close family member or a friend who finds out that you're thinking about homeschooling, they may have a reaction that you don't expect, or that is hurtful. It may be just some slight criticism, or it may be a push to get you to change your mind or to not even consider the topic. I don't want to get too much into this because there's a lot I could say about it, and I have said a lot about it. I have another video about dealing with homeschool haters and some of my experiences with criticisms and my thinking about them, and I'm pretty blunt in that video about it. So I'll leave you to watch that video if you're interested. The point I want to make right now is that something that can help you if you're being criticized or experiencing some negativity about homeschooling from other people, be it strangers or someone close to you. The degree to which you embrace your family's uniqueness will help you through that. If, I know that some people really like to feel like they're a part of a community and don't want anybody to feel like they're different or weird. And if you get those criticisms, that's something that can make you feel different or weird, and that can really concern you if you feel like other people are seeing or thinking those things about you. Now, if you're very confident in your family's uniqueness and expect to have other people to respect your family's uniqueness, that see that as a boundary that really shouldn't be crossed, which is what it should be, then you'll be able to go on and make your decision based on what's right for your family and not based on what somebody else thinks or what somebody else says. If you decide not to homeschool, it should be because you feel like that's not the right decision for your family, and not because you're being pressured into it by other people. So that's a very important understanding to have. It's a very, I feel, healthy way to approach criticism, in that, I know my family is not like other people's family, and while other people may not make this decision that I'm making, or this educational choice that my family is making, that's okay. This is our choice. It's a legal, moral choice, and so we're going to continue on with that. And I'm not going to make decisions in my family based on what other people think who really aren't involved, who aren't decision makers. So that's one area where it's really important to feel strong in your belief that your family is unique and that that's a good thing. Another area where embracing the uniqueness of your family is very helpful is in order to minimize confusion as you're researching your options. When you're researching different aspects of homeschooling, you're going to come across lots of different types of advice. But I've I categorize all of that advice into generally 3 different types. The first type of advice is the just relax advice. This advice says, hey, everything's going to be okay. Don't stress out. It'll all work out. Just do a little this and a little that. It's a very easy breezy, kind of go with the flow type of mentality. And sometimes I feel like that advice is born out of just simply not remembering what it was like when you first started. That's part of the reason that I wanted to do these videos now and not wait till I, had been homeschooling for 10 years, because it's easy to forget what it feels like when you're first getting started, and the truth of the matter that there are things to learn. This type of advice is characterized by a lack of helpfulness. You don't get any practical tips other than just kind of relax and do a little of this and a little of that. It's also characterized by sometimes by some condescension, even though I don't think it's usually intended that way. It just can feel like that. For example, when we were planning to homeschool, we were also in the process of purchasing a new home. And if we were going to homeschool, and my plan had been to also use a homeschool room if we homeschooled, then that was going to affect the type of home we chose if we were going to need a homeschool room. And I came across a lot of advice online saying that homeschool rooms are silly, and all these silly, new homeschool moms getting a homeschool room, and we had a homeschool room and we were never in it, kind of thing. It made me feel kind of ridiculous about it, and made me question. I inspired self-doubt and made me question my choice in that regard. And so I needed to look into it, because this was going to affect the home that we bought. We're talking some serious money's involved here. And so I started researching it. And my conclusion, once I researched and also did some little at-home experiments, having my kids like working at the kitchen table on different activities and kind of seeing how that worked out. After all that, I concluded that no, I want a homeschool room. That's the best thing for our family. And that was really, even though I'd been researching homeschooling for several months by then, that was the point really that I started embracing the idea of the uniqueness of our family, because I realized that what worked for some people wasn't going to work for me. And it really bothered me then that I felt then that I kind of wasted a lot of time in coming to that realization, and not letting other people's opinions determine a big decision like the kind of home we bought. That I felt like it was a waste of time. If I had been confident in that decision to begin with, not that it's a bad thing to second guess yourself, especially when big money's involved. But if I'd been confident, the truth is I knew before trying all those things, because I'm my kid's mom and I know me and I knew my kids. I knew that this was going to be the best thing, a schoolroom for us, for lots of reasons, and we can talk about that in another video. But for us, I knew that was going to be the right decision. But because other moms online who didn't have that understanding that every family is different were so very negative to moms that thought that a homeschool room would be the best thing for them, I wasted time that I didn't have to waste, and in just coming to that realization that I needed to just do me. I needed to do what was best for my family without regard to other people's opinions. So that just relax advice can not only does it not help you, but it can inspire a lot of self-doubt. If you're someone that needs more information, that doesn't so easily go with the flow, and just kind of end up feeling bad about yourself and your decision making, when really there's nothing wrong with you. You're just going about things a different way than someone else. Another type of advice, of homeschool advice that you'll see, is I categorize as the do it my way advice. And you see this a lot in books, especially when they're talking about a specific type of homeschooling or a specific educational philosophy. I've heard it in podcasts, Instagram posts, even blog posts, videos. Sometimes it's explicitly stated, saying that, this is kind of how I do things, and this has really worked for us, and you should do that too. I've heard it explicitly stated like that. And sometimes it's not the message that's intended by the content creator. They're just so enthusiastic about a product or something that's just really worked out for their family that, me as the viewer, we as the viewers can kind of get that impression that, oh, well, then is that what I'm supposed to be doing? So it's very important to stand firm in your family's uniqueness when seeing this type of advice, because especially when someone's very enthusiastic about something they've found or a way of doing things that really works for their family, even if you know better, even if well, I don't think that would work, if you see it enough times, then it can sway you. It can change your opinion and think, well, maybe I should try that. You never know. I've been in that position several times. I've tried things that I knew ahead of time probably weren't the best decision, but other people were so enthusiastic about it. I thought, well, maybe I should do that. Maybe I'll learn something new about my family or my kids. Maybe, the thing I think I know, I don't really know, and ended up usually regretting it. So it's very important to stand firm in your family's uniqueness, and to watch those videos, to read those blog posts, or to look at those Instagram posts and think, wow, that's awesome, that works for that family, but it might not work for me. I'm reminded of the story of Cinderella, the original Grimm's fairy tale version of it, where Cinderella's evil stepsisters are bound and determined to fit into that slipper. And their feet are too big, so they're going to have to make some changes. One cuts off a toe, another one cuts off, I think, part of her heel in order to fit their foot in the slipper. And isn't it like that so often when we really want to fit in to a community or into a group of people, when we want to shoehorn our family into the ways another family does things, often we end up hurting ourselves or someone else. There's an injury involved in denying that uniqueness and instead trying to fit into someone else's mold. So it's very important to stand firm on the idea of how unique your family is, even when you see something interesting that someone else is doing and that you really wish worked for you. And I've been there. I've seen other people do things. I think I wish so badly that was something that we could do that would fit in our family, and it just won't. Attempting to do that, it would be just a huge mistake and affect the levels of peace in our home for sure. So instead, I have to stand firm on my family's uniqueness and just know that while there's that thing I can't do, there are other things that our family can do and enjoy. There's a quote by Judy Garland that says, "Always be a first-rate version of yourself instead of a second-rate version of somebody else." And that's really what I want for my family, and I'm sure that's what you want for your family as well, to be the best versions of yourself. And the best way we can do that is to not imitate someone else and try to make ourselves like somebody else, and instead to get to know ourselves better, get to know our families better, and just be the best versions of ourselves. The third type of advice is my favorite type of advice, and it's the type of advice that I endeavor to give to you and that I look for in other people. It's the do what works for you advice. This type of advice has both helpful tips, but also the acknowledgement and understanding that what works for one family may not work for another and will not work for every family, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I love watching videos or reading content from homeschool moms that share, hey, here's what worked for us, and then especially when they give in, here's why I think this worked for us, or this didn't work for us, and here's why this did not work for us. That's very helpful in decision making for other families. I feel like I trust their content more. than I would someone who is very critical of other ways of doing things. I feel like there's a maturity there as well. I think a mark of maturity is understanding that everyone is different, and what works for one will not work for another, and that it's okay. That is okay. So I encourage you to look for, as you're researching homeschooling, to look for content created by people who respect your family's uniqueness and aren't trying to change it. The third reason that you really want to embrace the uniqueness of your family is because of marketing. There's this basic marketing principle that states that on average it takes about 7 touches for a prospect or potential client or customer to act on your product or service. So a touch can be anything from a conversation, an advertisement, a Facebook post, a YouTube video, anything that's going to get that product into the mind of a potential customer or just in front of their eyes. When it comes to homeschooling, we see this a lot. When a company is putting out new curriculum, maybe a new version of it, we see it often during the spring, because that's the time when a lot of homeschoolers are making purchasing decisions for the next year. And even at the beginning, like end of summer, beginning of the traditional school year, we'll see this. We'll see that it seems like everybody's talking about one product in particular. Every other YouTube video we watch, someone's talking about this product. We're seeing lots of advertisements and lots of Instagram posts about this product. We're seeing it because those companies are trying to get as many touches as possible. They're trying to get as many people as possible to see information about their product as often as possible. And, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the responsibility of a company to make sure that they advertise their product. They have that responsibility to their employees to make sure that as many people as possible know about that product and know the value that product can bring to their lives. And there's nothing wrong with an influencer, a YouTuber, a blogger, someone who's got a really good Instagram following. There's nothing wrong with them taking the opportunity to work with those companies and maybe getting a discount or free product in exchange for their honest review. Because you know what? It helps the homeschool budget. Many of them already use those products and love them. So why not take the opportunity to get it for free or at a discount? And all they have to do is share with you what value they see in it. Or some of them may be new to the product, but were looking for something like that. They think it might work for their family, so why not? Why not take advantage of those opportunities? There's nothing wrong with that. The responsibility lies with us as the consumer, making sure that we make good decisions, that we make purchasing decisions based on the uniqueness of our families and what will work for us, and not make purchasing decisions in an emotional way. And seeing that, all these people are using it, it must be really awesome. And it might be awesome, but it might not be awesome for you. So it's important for us to make wise, thoughtful, insightful choices when we make purchasing decisions and not make an emotional choice just because it feels like everybody's using a particular product. So what can you do right now to get ready to homeschool? You can, on your own, meditate on, think about, maybe journal, if that's your thing. Journal about the degree to which you're comfortable in your family's uniqueness and being a unique family, and the degree to which you're comfortable with your kids being unique. While we're just sitting here talking about, it may seem like not a big deal, but when the rubber hits the road, when we're getting criticized, when we see that our kid isn't learning something as fast as somebody else, or isn't interested in something that lots of other kids are interested in, then it may be a harder pill to swallow. So think about the degree to which you're comfortable with your family being unique, and also maybe specific areas where you're not as comfortable with it, and really consider that, because this is what's going to lay the foundation for your future decisions. We're talking about things in generalities right now, but then in the following videos, we'll talk about some specifics with the understanding that your family is unique, therefore your homeschool will be unique. You'll be creating a homeschool that is not an imitation of someone else's homeschool. You'll be customizing your homeschool for your particular family, for your particular children, for you as the homeschool parent that's going to implementing all the plans you make. Whether those plans are simple or very structured, they're going to be unique to your family. Something else that you can do right now is start a homeschool binder or notebook. Just a place to keep all the research and information and questions that you have about homeschooling in one place. Reserve one page in there for questions, one or more pages really for questions. Don't go and research those questions right now, but go ahead and do a brain dump. Write down all the questions you have about homeschooling in general and about how it's going to work for your family specifically. And over time, you'll be answering those questions, and you'll have the knowledge to make some decisions based on those, on what you know about your homeschool in order to answer those questions. Keep that notebook or binder in a central location so that if you have a question or just something pops into your mind, you can write it down quickly without worrying about forgetting it. Save a spot in your notebook or binder for the printables that I'll have for you that will help you to get to know your family better. I also have a printable available for you right now. If you look below in the description box, you'll see a link to my blog where I discuss this idea of uniqueness a little more in a little bit of a different way if you're interested in reading that. And I also have a download available, which is a quote, one of the quotes that I mentioned today. Maybe you can put that in your binder to remind you to value your family's uniqueness. Maybe you can put it somewhere where you'll see it often, near the sink when you're doing dishes or where you fold your laundry. That way, when you have some time to meditate and think about something like this, about your family, and some quiet time to devote to meditating and thinking, that might be a good time for you to think about embracing your family's uniqueness. Thank you so much for your time. Please know that I highly value and esteem your family's uniqueness, and I don't want to do or say anything that detracts from that. Don't forget to hit the like button below, and also to subscribe if you're interested in more videos on this topic and more videos in this series. And also hit the little bell icon so that you're notified of new videos. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you in the next video.